Okay, everybody. Welcome to the P2P stage. We have an excellent panel today. It's about women and Bitcoin, and I'm going to let Manana take it away.
Yeah, hello. Thank you guys for joining us to the Women in Bitcoin. And the brilliant ladies, Alexandra.
Yeah, I'm Alexandra Karpova, founder and CEO of CryptoPR Lab. You can't hear? Oh, okay. I'm Alexandra Karpova, founder and CEO of CryptoPR Lab. Thanks for having me.
Maria.
Hi everyone. My name is Masha Prusakova. I'm a co-founder of CryptoPR Lab together with Alexandra. We do public relations for blockchain startups, and we also work on Davos Conference Week and bring startups to Davos every January since 4 years.
And our last guest.
Hi, I'm Radhika Iyengar. I'm co-founder and founding partner of StarChain Ventures. We are a firm that's focused on foundational technology, blockchain, enterprise blockchain to be specific. And we do a lot of advisory in this space, and we also run a venture studio.
Ladies, and my first question, why are so few women buying Bitcoin?
I think because the volatility was so high. I mean, today it's worth 13,000. 2 hours later, it's 11,000. I'm personally,
Can't even hear
when everyone started buying Bitcoin in early 2013, I personally was very skeptical because you just don't know what it is, and there wasn't just enough education about it. I thought most people only bought it because they were in the circles, and some friends told them about it, and they really took a lot of risk. And I felt a lot of women didn't want to do that. And I think now, because everyone knows more about it, and this year, crypto winter is over, as you know, and then crypto summer is here. And I think if back in December, all the smarter ones bought all the Bitcoins, and now it went up, but most people wouldn't take that risk. And I think some women just, I don't know. I personally was like, oh my God, what is going to happen? What if it's going to go all the way down? So I think the risk-averse factor is the biggest one for me.
It's same with altcoins. Maria, what do you think?
What's that?
It's same like the different altcoins and different digital assets. What do you think?
Well, I think, what was the question again?
What is the difference between, if we want to invest in digital assets or altcoins,
Bitcoin. Why would you invest in Bitcoin?
So, personally, if I have to say whether I would invest in Bitcoin or stable coins or real estate or stocks or, I don't know, in my education, I would go for Bitcoin. Why Bitcoin? First of all, it's a very scarce asset. There were 21 million Bitcoins, and now there's about 17 million which are already available, and 3 million which are not in circulation yet. This asset is very scarce, meaning that it can go all the way up to 100K, 20K per Bitcoin. So then the second argument why to invest in Bitcoin will be it's anonymous, just like other crypto assets. When you invest in Bitcoin, the people know your crypto wallet, your ID of your crypto wallet. When you invest, when for example you pay with credit card, or when you just pay with other means of payment, people know your name, and people can use your name, for example, and do fraudulent transactions.
Yeah, but also when you lose funds, when you're anonymous, you can't get it back. It's impossible. If somebody hacks your wallet, how are you going to get the money back? I mean, it's gone.
Well, when you buy something with the credit card, then
yeah, I call my American Express.
Everybody knows your name straight away and can fraud your credit card. So I think you're gonna use Bitcoin.
You know what I'm saying?
Then also Bitcoins and digital assets are protected from inflation. Look at dollar, look at everything else.
How we can involve more women in crypto, and what is the difference between the investment style of men and women? What do you think?
Well, I believe that women are very risk averse. Like myself, I have a savings account. I'm not much into stocks, and I would invest in Bitcoin and other assets. But in general, women are women. They naturally were helping the kids. They were collecting fruits in the big and the middle age, while men were like hunting, they're like risks, and they are much more manly, I would say. So even the difference between men and women naturally is reflected in their investment styles, where men are more risky, they want to take risks, and women, they are less risky.
So I actually have a slightly different opinion, not just in investment. I mean, I do agree that women are much more risk averse in general than men, but I do think that one of the great ways we can attract more women into this field is the technology itself. So I think that women, once you understand the purpose of something, what this is designed for, what you can do with this, that's when you really can get excited about something. So I personally got into this space by way of the technology side. I work a lot in digital health, and when I looked at the technology itself and looked at the underlying properties of blockchain technology, i.e. trust, transparency, the decentralized architectures, the single source of truth, I mean, these are things that are impactful and are hugely useful in terms of the applications of this technology. You can talk about applications in healthcare, in fintech, in supply chain and logistics, in power and energy and resources. You can talk about public sector use cases. The use cases are almost infinite if you look at how fraud can be solved, how trust and transparency and the data layer is really what's so exciting about this technology. And I look at that from a transformative perspective. That's what gets me excited about this space and this technology. So one advice I have to women getting into this space is education, talking more about it. So to that point, here we are, a great panel of women in this space. And where are we? We are stuck on a side stage on the last day of a conference in the afternoon when most people have left. The audience is sparse, and so our message can't be reached to the greater mainstream audience that has come to this great conference. So most of them are upstairs talking about some other things. So in my opinion, how do you attract more diversity and inclusion into this space is making sure that these kinds of forums are included on the main stage.
And actually, according to McKinsey's study, they looked through all the companies that manage both women and men, and the companies that have more diversity in terms of management actually were more likely have more profits by 21%. So that's pretty incredible numbers. And also, I've read this study by HSBC, and they basically talk about that women in general, when they do research in terms of risk averse, they're actually risk averse because they actually do more. On average, they spend more time on researching and educating themselves on some certain project by about 5 to 7%. So I think maybe that's why risk averse comes to place, because they're more careful, because perhaps they've done more research, but I don't know. But that's pretty good statistics right there.
Also another way to bring more women into the crypto world and make them motivated is actually to write about women. Feature them at Forbes, Entrepreneur. We run a PR firm with Alexandra, and what we do, we feature our clients in various publications, and we let the world know, we let the white male world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency know that there are also women interested in it, and there are also women who are there. So if you look into the Forbes, I think it was last February, Forbes list of the cryptocurrency multimillionaire, and the 17 people on this Forbes list, they're all men. They're also women, but they're just not featured. So when you, for example, organize a conference and you look at your diversity, very often there are 80% or 90% of male speakers and only 10 or 20 female speakers. So I think that featuring women and showing the women, there's just so many women founders of really big, incredible startups. You're just going to talk about them, show them there. And so the more women we show, the more other women will go and repeat after themselves. If there is Alexandra and Masha on Forbes launching Crypto Paralab, then other women are looking at us and saying, wow, these girls under 30, they launched their company in crypto. We can also do this. So we're going to talk about them and showcase them to everyone, so more people repeat and take example.
We should be on the main stage, not on the back one.
Yeah, exactly.
My next question about female founders, because a lot of female founders looking for raising in Bitcoin or in cryptocurrency. How we can help venture capital and like engage a lot of women in like women as VC, like as like women in hedge funds, how we can help millennial go to the crypto economy. What do you think? What is like our next steps?
Well, I think that one of the big issues is it's kind of like a catch-22. We do see some upticks in women founders, female founders, women entrepreneurs, but the funding remains to be extremely constricted. I often talk about creating more lanes on the highway, but it's not just more lanes on the highway for women, it's creating wider lanes for women. So if you look at statistics, the numbers in terms of how much women can raise as female founders is a lot less than what male founders can raise. Studies have been done by Harvard Business School and McKinsey and others to show that pitches that are delivered, the same exact pitch script that's delivered by a woman is not perceived very well, but the same pitch script delivered by a man is perceived to be much higher. There are biases that exist. We have to work with these biases. So I do think that there's a lot of work to be done. And to Masha's point, I think the more we see women founders being showcased, their successes being portrayed, it's very clear. Studies have shown that not just diversity in terms of a mix of an organization, but women-led companies are hugely profitable. And so showcasing those successes and celebrating those successes is going to encourage more women to get involved. Likewise, on the venture capital front, we need more women investors because truth of the matter is I've been a serial entrepreneur, so I know what this is like, sitting on the other side of a table and talking to a male investor where they're looking at you saying, I don't know if you can do this, right? And so there's this uncertainty and doubt creeps into your mind saying, can I do this, right? And so if you have women investors that are open to meeting female founders, I think that can really change the way things are. And things are changing to that effect, 100%. But the change is very slow. So, sitting here in Silicon Valley, we're still seeing, venture capital being dominated by men.
So why this? Why women, do you think, Alexandra or Manana, why is it harder for women to raise money? In 2018, only 4% of all the venture funds raised were founded by women. 4%, which actually raised money, are women, 96% are men.
Yep.
Why?
Well, I just talked about the biases. So say, for example, you're working on an idea, and the investor, who happens to be male, sitting across from you on the table, they're really thinking well, does this person look like me? No. Can I relate to this person? No. I'm not really understanding the way this person communicates. And so there's a bias against that whole message that's being brought about. The other thing is, if women are working for example, one of the fastest growing areas is femtech, which is women's health. That's a huge area of growth. Well, can you imagine being a woman and talking about a fem health issue, which is hugely impactful for the women who, by the way, are a majority of the population, talking to a guy who says, I don't really relate to that. Well, he might not think to himself in that moment, well, gosh, does my mother care about this? Does my sister care about this? Does my daughter care about this? Do people I know, my friends, care about this? So it's very difficult for a male investor sometimes to put themselves into that position and be open to that message, which is why we need more women investors as well to change the statistics in terms of the way funding is being rendered.
Right. And the interesting thing, what women do in order to raise more money and be like men, they would cut their hair short, they wear no makeup and no heels, and they pretend they're men, and they go to the male's meeting and say, like, hey, I'm like you, so I'm as smart as you, and I look like you, give me more money.
Well,
why is it a bad idea?
I think that would be a very bad idea. I think you should be you, whatever that you is.
I want to hear this gentleman next to Alex.
I have to say, Alex is sitting in the audience, and he's somebody who really celebrates having a very diverse team. You often talk about the great success in your company being attributed to the wonderful women that work and lead in your company. Exactly, and so you attribute that success in every single presentation I've heard you give, which is bravo. We need more men as well to take this conversation to a much larger sphere. So it's not, one of the things that I have this love-hate relationship about women in blockchain, women in tech, women in whatever panel, because who shows up? Mostly women. and a handful of hand-picked people that you might reach out to across the aisle and say, please join us, gentlemen, because this conversation is not just about women, it's about all of us in the community. So if we really want to make this an inclusive community on a global scale, we need it to be much more diverse, not just gender diverse, but just in general, much more diverse.
I think diverse in terms of
Yes,
diverse in terms
Satoshi's
of
female.
mindset. I think everybody should be inclusive and not just should be. I don't like the boys' club. I don't like the girls' club. It should be investors' club.
Just a club.
Yeah, but
Got it.
I mean, I personally, when I lived in New York, I lived in finance, and every time I come to the office, the most successful women that were in the trading floor, they were so intense and tough. But girls that were more softer, they were very afraid to go that road because they would become intense and tough. So that's kind of that's what Masha's point. Why can't we just be ourselves if you like long blonde hair, and why do you have to be objectified by it? And I just see that happening a lot. And most successful women nowadays in politics, finance, real estate, they're much more intense, and they don't look like women that work, and they're actresses. I don't think it's point of intelligence, it's points of belonging to society or community where they work. That's
and
why this is the
I
issue.
think to your point, I think it's making the environment more friendly to all people of diverse
Right.
backgrounds, not just women, by the way, but to that point, if you create an environment, a work culture that is much more inclusive, that embraces people of different points of view, of different backgrounds, I think you end up with a much richer environment. And you can actually, studies have again shown that what you end up creating is something that's much more representative of a global population instead of just a narrow-minded thing.
Yeah.
Okay, my next question, how the blockchain can work for the social impact? Like if you talk about blockchain as a technology, maybe it could be like,
Can you
I don't
speak
know.
louder because nobody can hear? Can
Yes,
you repeat the
background noise.
question?
How the blockchain technologies and like the next step of the technologies could work for the social impact, for the government.
So what's the social impact of blockchain technologies?
Yeah,
Okay.
like the really cool examples. So maybe it could be like the crypto for kids, like for the
There's actually some amazing use cases really developing across the board, not just in public blockchain, but also in the permission side of blockchain. So if you look at enterprise technology, it's much more on the permissioned networks that we're talking about. But there's some amazing use cases. I just moderated a panel in Boston about ethical supply chains. Why would we care about ethical supply chains? So we as consumers buy products every day, and do we think about where these products come from? Do we think about how these products were produced? Are they being sourced with ethically, socially responsible materials? Did you think about the fact that we're carrying laptops and cell phones and use them every day, but the materials that go into them are not exactly being sourced in an ethically sound way? So you might have child labor, child slavery. You think about blood diamonds. You think about Everledger and the success story that's had in almost single-handedly eradicating the problem of blood diamonds. I think it's about socially conscious consumerism. And so I think that's why, when you think about just that use case alone, that's causing people to look at the auditability and traceability of a using blockchain to create auditability or traceability in a product supply chain. And that way, when you're actually consuming the product, you as a consumer can put an app next to the product and say, aha, this product was ethically produced. I can see all the way back to the origin, where it was done, how it was done, and making sure that this is something that's, I'm consuming a product that is ethically sound. So if you think about, ethical supply chains, that's a great social impact story. There are other things in healthcare or in fintech. I think that the examples that we're seeing for financial inclusion in Africa, for example, or other emerging markets, where you're talking about banking the unbanked. And by the way, many of the unbanked are women. They're marginalized in communities. They're not allowed into the financial economy. You can use this banking the unbanked platforms, and that's actually being used. IBM created WorldWire, and that's now in partnership with Stellar, right? And so that partnership creates opportunities for financial inclusion in markets where the bank is not where people go and keep their money. Those are some
Masha.
examples.
What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, and my last question, Libra, Facebook's Libra. What we're feeling about this new idea and how it can support to involve a lot of women in Bitcoin, or like the women, like the us investors.
Yeah, I can start. Well, Libra is a great idea. Well, let's see what happens. Talking about corporations, international organizations, adopting their cryptocurrency or creating the international currency for the entire world, that's a great idea. So we should see who will do it faster and better. Is it Facebook, Microsoft, who will adopt their currency and everybody will take it? Is it each country? Like Switzerland is going to adopt their franc token. It's in thoughts. I think one of my peers mentioned there is Fiji or some other government who are already using the digital asset for the entire country. So looking into the Libra example, and everyone is very excited we can even think about the digital currency for the entire world. Like, why do we need exchanges? Why do we need to change Bitcoin to Ethereum? Why do we need to change USD to Swiss francs or to euro and pay so much fees for all these changes? We can have one world digital currency for the entire world. United Nations are actually working on the global government. It's an utopia, and nobody thinks it's possible, but maybe there is a global government one day, and maybe there is one currency for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, Libra is just another proof that crypto and blockchain is a real thing. And you look, and I feel like this year, more and more institutional investors are going to come in and put more money in. And back in April, when me and Masha went to the IMF, International Monetary Fund annual meeting, and Christine Lagarde, who's a managing director of IMF, she kept saying digital currencies. IMF adopted its own digital currency. JPM just announced their stable coin, and they're going to roll it out end of 2019, right? Then M-Pesa in Africa, where most of the majority of African countries now, they use all payments via their mobile phones via M-Pesa app, right? Then we have WeChat, where all the digital payments are made with messengers. And 6 or 7 central banks now, they're adopting their own internal digital currency for internal operations. And Libra is just another proof that it's going mainstream, and more and more traditional world, I'd say, adopting it, and I'm really excited about it. And look, Bitcoin is what, 13,000 now, or what is it? I think it went down a little bit. It's going to go up again, but it's crazy. It's another proof, So I'm pretty excited about that.
I'll just add on the technology front. I mean, what I think is really exciting about Libra is if you think about Web 2.0 as a technology and the internet, that's one way of doing business. And then what we're trying to get to is that fully decentralized model that everybody gets excited about in the blockchain space. What Libra is almost like a half step forward, because first of all, on the technology side, it's a consortium. You've got highly vetted partners that are working together. So everybody keeps talking about Facebook's Libra. Yes, Facebook is a primary player in this consortium, but it's not the only player, right? You've got other players sitting at the table. And so you've got this highly vetted consortium of partners that are working together. And what is it really about? It's not a cryptocurrency. It's a stable coin, which means it's backed by fiat. Why is it so exciting? Because it's fully compliant. If it weren't compliant, if it was truly a cryptocurrency, they'd be getting a lot more heated scrutiny from the SEC, because we just can't do that here in the US. And so it's a great step forward, because to Alexandra's point, history has shown us, like for example in the internet days, that technology is first endorsed by large brands, enterprises that get into the space and validate the technology and say, this is a good technology, it's okay. It's kind of like when you're trying to teach a kid to swim or something and say, what, the water is really great, you can step in now, you don't have to be so scared about it. It removes some of that uncertainty and that perceived psychological risk in getting into the market. So I see Libra as a great half step forward in the right direction, getting the world to sort of back this and endorse it and recognize that this is a technology that's here to stay.
Well, I just read in one of the news sites that the US government doesn't want Libra to be around anymore, and they're criticizing it. They want to regulate it. So we see that corporation Facebook, it's a monopoly, just like Microsoft or Amazon. They're doing something that the government can't really control, and they're trying to stop it. So I'm very curious to see what's going on with Libra and with other big corporations who are going to do the same, basically, when Facebook started.
Yep. I think, from a regulation standpoint, even the early internet, again, I'll harken back to the days of the internet, early internet, it was also something that was highly uncertain. It was also viewed as a technology that all the illicit actors of the world are involved with, and it usually attracts those kinds of people. But I think that blockchain, again, if you look at the fundamental technology, it's pretty exciting in terms of solving some problems that other technologies can't solve, like the fraud and the transparency that I was talking about. There's a need for data transparency worldwide in so many different applications, and so for me to see something like Libra coming about, which is endorsed by large players. These large players are not there to say we're just taking a chance on this, right? There's a real thesis. It's very intelligently put together, and so even the digital ID concept that they're talking about in their white paper, decentralized ID, digital ID. This is like the next gen of stuff that we need to be working on and thinking about and incorporating into how we behave in our society, in that digital society. So I'm pretty excited about the implication of Libra.
Okay, guys, maybe you have questions.